The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Coming to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Welcome, Be Awesome listeners, followers, viewers, everyone around the galaxy that chooses to spend some time with us and hear the stories of our guests and my neighbor here today. This is our first remote virtual podcast recording, and I couldn't do it alone. So I had what is it? Master of Merchandise?
Adam came up with the title.
Yeah.
I think it's Merchandise Master.
Is it Master of Merchandise?
What is
the
it?
Master of Merchandise. My go-to guy, Mr. Mark Resnick. Mark, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Josh. Thanks for having me today. I'm lucky to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. Because I didn't want to be alone in here. I mean, Adam's with me, but he doesn't jump on. He jumped on once with me, but he wouldn't jump on with me today. So this is kind of cool. We've got this guest that I met through LinkedIn, and it was through, I don't know, I think it was a post or something. But I was actually a fan, a quiet fan and follower of our guest, Andy Riise, West Point grad. He was in a competition with John McCaskill, retired Navy SEAL. It was the Frogman against the Rooster, I think was your shirt, right?
Right.
And they were raising money for a really amazing cause, which I think was Warrior Rising,
Yes,
or
sir.
some part of Warrior Rising, which they're doing some amazing things for our military veterans. And so at some point down the road, he had this post where he had this god awful tie-dye shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was tough. It had been to one too many Grateful Dead concerts.
Okay.
And so I made some comment about he needs a better shirt. And McCaskill's like, yeah, you need to send him some Be Awesome stuff. So we got a Be Awesome swag box in the mail, and he has represented and supported
Look at that.
ever since. And I've gotten to follow along with Andy. And one of the cool things, we're going to dig into this, but one of the cool things with Andy is he's a really bright guy. You can just tell, you're going to tell in the first 2 minutes talking to him, he's smart, he's done his homework, does his research. And I'm not that bright. And we had a conversation. I mean, I think it was at the airport, or you were at the airport, or we were both at an airport.
Right.
We had our initial phone call, and we talked for like an hour. Like I had to turn my phone off. The pilot's like, dude, we're not taking off until you shut that thing off. And I just wanted to keep talking to him. And I just wanted to keep talking to him. And what was interesting was he was like, what do you think? And it was all around the wording of what he was looking to do. And I think what he chose, which is genius, which is mental fitness, not mental toughness, but mental fitness, is genius. And so we're going to dig into what Andy does and how he helps people train the brain, and how he's learned about it and learn more about him. But that's kind of what we're talking about today, right, Andy? We're going to talk about mental fitness, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So let's dig in. Who is Andy Riise, and what gets you up in the morning to smile and put your Be Awesome shirt on?
Oh man, I'm just trying to be like you guys. You guys are bona fide pros, right? I got the merch master, I got the merch master, and I got the Sultan of Awesomeness over here, right? And so first of all, thank you for having me today. This is an honor to be with you. And Josh, I've been a fan as yours as well too, and I was a little jealous of Teresa Larson and John McCaskill rocking this really cool really cool shirt. And I just like, what a great concept. I get so many compliments every time I wear it. Like you, I mean, it's all about helping and serving others to become the best version of themselves, to be awesome.
Yep.
Really. We all, I think I believe that everyone's designed to perform. That's the name of my company. And, we talk about, you're either a performer or you're on the sidelines and you're a critic, right? You can't beat both, right? And so I think we're all performers. We're all designed to perform. We all have this potential to be awesome and to be the most awesome version of ourselves. And the one thing that kind of keeps people from becoming that is they're in their own head. They get mentally stuck, or they don't know how to level up. We understand that the mental side of everything is really important. We know how to train our brain. And So I've been on this odyssey for the last 25 years to one, understand the art and science of kicking ass between the ears, and then help, then turn around and teach that and train that and coach that in a way that's scalable and sustainable, that uses technology, that integrates with other ways of training and education, that gets it in the hands of the people who need it the most, like our kids, like our first responders, like our military. Where I come from in this field of sport and performance psychology, it's kind of stuck right now in elite populations, and which is great. And I've worked in those populations. But for me, like what it's all about is democratizing this idea of mental fitness. And what I mean by that is, making it available and accessible to people earlier in their lifespan and people who are maybe who need it, because, we're going to talk about what this means and get into it. Right. But when we talk about anything on the mental side, there's a stigma associated with that. And so how do we reduce that stigma, reduce the barrier of entry, and get this in the hands of people like really earlier in their lifespan, or who really need it, when therapy may not be the only answer, to where counseling and services that are related to that are maybe more on the medical model. Maybe you're more on the coping to thriving band, which we'll talk about. And so how do I get that and do that? And I'm happy to tell you my story and how I got it. But I got there just because, like a lot of people, I was stuck. I was mentally stuck, and I needed something to help me get out of this rut, and that's how I found the mental game. And it's just been my passion.
When was this in your life?
Say again?
When was this in your life that you were stuck?
Yeah, it was really when I was at West Point. Go Army. I was recruited to play football at West Point. Went there in the early 90s. And as your audience will know, West Point, the U.S. Military Academy, it's this 47-month crucible experience that's designed to really beat you down and test your mettle. And, it's been studied and analyzed, and there's a high washout rate. And it's difficult because, everyone there is getting ready to go become an Army officer and become a leader, a character for service to the nation in the Army. And so that's what your job is when you graduate. For me, it's not only the challenges of your academics, taking twice the academic load as a normal student, as an Ivy League education. You're studying a lot of math and science, STEM disciplines, which was not my bag. But I'm playing Division I football at a really high level, which is almost like a full-time job in itself. Mm-hmm. And then I'm getting all my military training requirements. I'm not getting a lot of sleep. I'm getting up early. I'm staying up late. And by the time I hit my sophomore year, I switched positions. I was a fullback, which is kind of known as being like a tough guy. So I thought I was a tough guy, but it just really started to overwhelm me. And my coach referred me to this unique student support center called the Center for Enhanced Performance. This is where sport and performance psychology came into the U.S. military, and today that's the U.S. Army is the largest employer of sports psychologists in the world, ironically. So the Army went all in, starting with this center. To me, it just was another student support center, but I started working with this Army officer, learning about this idea of mental toughness, how to be confident despite setbacks, how to be composed in extreme circumstances, control my emotions, how to seek challenges and grow as a result of whether or not I get results or not, how to be motivated and disciplined. And what I didn't realize at times as a survival mode, fellas, is that like I was kind of developing these intangible attributes that make effective leaders in combat. And there's this quote that's up on, the athletics side, the academy. It's by Douglas MacArthur, General Douglas MacArthur. And it's on the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that on other fields, on other days, will bear the fruits of victory. So as we know, sports is this great laboratory to really learn a lot of life skills. And for me, it was the mental game. And so 9/11 happened when I graduated in 2001. Within 100 days, I just met my soon-to-be wife. Fast forward 3 more years, I'm 25 years old and leading, 30 soldiers into combat during the sprint to Baghdad. And, we got there, thought we were, we mission accomplished and we won, but the fight was just starting because all these foreign fighters started coming in. They were not going toe to toe because we had overwhelming firepower. So they were hitting us with a death by 1,000 cuts, with roadside bombs, sniper fire, blending in with the population, a true insurgency. And we weren't trained for that. And I think although we were physically fit to fight, we were technically competent, some of our equipment wasn't quite ready. The thing that allowed us to be able to adapt and overcome, despite all that challenge, change, and adversity, was our not only my mental toughness that I learned, as an Army football player at West Point, but our collective mental toughness. And so when I redeployed for that first time, the way that we trained to get ready and go fight, deploy to Iraq and Afghanistan for the next 20 years, it fundamentally changed. But what I found was I knew how to bring that skill into myself as an individual, but I didn't know how to train my soldiers as a leader. And that became kind of my burning questions, like, how do we train this stuff to not only for ourselves, to make us better leaders, but then help make our people better, help other individuals and teams get better. And then just fast forward, I went back and taught at the same center, really interesting time, helped develop the Army's resilience program. Had a cup of coffee at the Air Force Academy, worked with Special Forces for 5 years as a support guy, helping, elite Green Berets jump out of perfectly good airplanes and put warheads on enemy foreheads. And they were developing this elite tactical athlete concept to where they were starting to train like athletes, because they were on that same cycle. And so they were bringing in strength and conditioning coaches, physical therapists, mental performance coaches on top of like your behavioral health folks as well. And so I got a chance to work with them, started doing some moonlighting a little bit with pro sports and the NFL and business, just to kind of keep my sword sharp. Because as an artillery officer, and how do you become a mental performance coach when you're an Army officer? There's no such thing. And so then when I retired, I went into Major League Baseball for 2 years with the Rockies and Reds during the pandemic. But I'm working with elite athletes who are trying to make them be good to great and great to good, which is small margins. But meanwhile, at home, my son was having a mental health crisis. And meanwhile, I was unpacking my own mental health issues of, 20 years of war, and I have PTSD, I have traumatic brain injury. And so I just realized that, hey, we need to get this out of the elite populations and down into the everyday people, starting with our kids. And so after a stint working at Texas A&M and teaching there, I went on my own and start my own business. And now that's what I do. I'm all about helping really get this in the hands of the people who need it the most, so they can become better leaders, better performers, better teams.
So I want to, for our listeners, because I know this stuff. I don't know if you know this, but West Point, first of all, it's an amazing, beautiful campus. And I could just tell, I did a tour. I actually did a 2-day leadership there where they took me back into the Revolutionary War, and I got to be George Washington and Benedict Arnold and all those folks, and walk around and determine what you would do and what action you would take. And it was so much different from the 1700s to now. Yeah. Like what's the what were they called? The lookouts. There was a word for it. There's a stone up on the top.
Readouts. They're the readouts. Yeah. We had gun batteries up there. Yeah. With, as an artillery officer, is a very strategic place. It's a choke point in the river, which the Hudson River is very strategic for us against the British. And so whoever held West Point really controlled the Hudson River. And so it's our nation's oldest, longest continuing military base. Yeah. So it's only appropriate. That's where we train our Army officers, right? But little known fact, Benedict Arnold was the first garrison commander, right? So that the guy who's known as being a traitor is the first garrison commander of West Point.
Wow. So you're on this readout, which is in the top of the hill, overlooking the campus, overlooking the curve in the river. And they say, all right, what do you do? What are you doing up here? And we're like, oh, we're looking down into the river to see people coming. We're looking at this. And they go, no. This is where the readout was, where people looked back away from the river, where the soldiers looked back away from the river to make sure that nobody came from the woods off and came to attack. Right. So, but today's mindset of what you would look at would be long range, paying attention down. But it was like, so they really, it trained your brain. We're talking about training your brain. They were trying to train your brain into looking at things differently, right. Not just as like how you look at it today, but so West Point's got a really neat factoid too that you probably know about. The church was built in 1911. I was just looking at it, and I got 1910, I believe. The stained glass is some of the most beautiful stained glass, and it's one of the largest working organs in the world. But the stained glass was bid out and a company in New York City won it. And to date, they've never raised the cost to replace the stained glass by a penny, because the prestige and the pride of being the provider of stained glass for West Point is that important to them that they have not raised the price by a penny as to what they will charge, which is pretty cool. Now, this is the factoid I'm not positive on. To go to West Point, you have to give how many years of service after?
Yep. Right, 5 years. Yeah, so everyone's there on academic scholarship, whether you're an athlete or not, and then you owe 5 years of active duty service, and then with 2 years of inactive ready reserve, right? So if there's World War III breaks out, then they could call you back. You know, and honestly, like I went there to play ball. I mean, and it was never in the plan to spend a whole career. And as a matter of fact, if you ask my close buddies, they'd be like, Riise would be the last guy. He'd be getting out at 3. Like, there's no way this guy's gonna stay in and retire, you know, let alone do it all at war. And I just was really lucky. The reason why a lot of people ask me is because it felt like playing ball. Like, you know, to me, I think the military is the ultimate team sport, right? You know, and it was the closest thing to football. I love football because of that. I'm a rugby coach now. I love it for this. I love team sports. I've always been a team sport guy. For me, it was the ultimate team sport. And I just, you know, I got so many great opportunities in the Army. I worked with so many amazing human beings, my soldiers, I never had a bad boss. I mean, who could say they spent a career doing anything and never had a bad boss, you know? And so, I mean, that was kind of the reason that kept me in. And my family, you know, has a long line of service to their country and to our communities, you know, and I still feel compelled to serve, and I don't think you have to wear a uniform to serve. And it just was a great ride.
What was it like? Because when you went in and you said you were going to play football, like you went in,
the
United States, like what we had to worry about when you went into college was the worry was Y2K, right? We were worried that the world,
Y2K, and we were in the Balkans, like we were dealing with everything in Bosnia Herzegovina. That was the concern of the day.
But it wasn't massive concern, and it was during the first initial .com bubble, so the economy was good, life was good, and you graduate 100 days later and 9/11 hits. What reality slap was that to you, as far as like you go in and you're like, oh yeah, I give 6 years and, you know, probably not going to do much, and then all of a sudden you graduate 100 days later, it's like, we're going to war and this could last for a really long time. And these people that we're going up against are willing to take their own lives and crash planes and do all these things. Like, what was that? That had to have done something. I mean, psychologically, that had to have been tough to wrap your head around, because that's just boom, everything just changes.
It was, and it's part of the reason why I admired the soldiers that I had opportunity to lead, because they came in knowing that we were at war. And I always said that. Remember, we used to bash millennials, right? And I'm Gen X, you know, as you guys are. Mark, I'm assuming you are as well too, by your as well. But we, you know,
by his young looks,
like what? I'm the oldest.
by his young looks, exactly, So, you know, I'm a little ahead of you too.
I think I'm the oldest. I'm definitely the oldest one here. So you're under 50. Right? I mean, you're.
Oh, he's younger than me.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about 9/11.
9/11. He graduated.
I was already working, doing my merchandise.
Yeah, he's right around my age. He's got a couple years to 50.
You're already the merch master.
I was already the merch master by the time 9/11.
The original gangster of merch master. So to answer your question, I mean, hey, we went from not being at war to, like, you know, I got a handwritten letter saying from my first commander, who was in like Serbia, like, hey, you know, welcome to the unit. And I'm thinking I'm going to go to the Balkans, right? And then 9/11 happens, and then all of a sudden, just everything changed. And I remember I was in my officer basic course. I was in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I was studying gunnery, which is like, you talk about those readouts, Josh, like the guys who, like, it's kids, literally cannon science. And you know, for one, the seriousness of our training that's really amped up big time, right? Then it was like, okay, when are we going to go? And, you know, so we knew where our first units we were going to, the installation where it was, and now it was just a matter of like, when are we going to go? Because we knew we were going to go, and obviously, like, the focus was on Afghanistan at that time because of Bin Laden and everything going on with the Taliban that was there, and you know, the first people who were there were the CIA and special forces, right? Well, then the follow-on forces came. So we had some time. I mean, who would have known that we would have gone to Iraq? Then that would have been my first deployment. And so by the time I hit the ground in my first unit, I met them at a White Sands missile range. So I was multiple launch rocket systems. So you think about, they look like tanks, MLRS, you know, and they can fire rockets and missiles, you know, unclassified up to like 300 kilometers, right? And, you know, they're pretty amazing combat systems. I had 3 of them in my platoon. And so I met my unit who was out in White Sands missile range, the only place where you could actually fire some of the missiles at their designated length, to be able, in White Sands missile range. For our listeners, this is actually where we dropped the atomic bomb. So if you watched the movie Oppenheimer, this is where that ground zero is, right there too. So it's this huge test and training range where we can test all kinds of munitions. So we were doing we were training out there, and little did I know that we were getting ready to go to Iraq, and we would be one of the first units to be able to go in there. You know, and I'd met my wife, and I knew that I loved her, and so that was, you know, it wasn't just about me. Obviously, my parents were really worried, and you know, during that whole build up, you know, I knew that I wanted to get married, and we ended up getting married in a hurry right before I deployed because we wanted to be married in case something happened to me. And just my whole life changed in a lot of ways. And so, in the way that our sense of urgency and focus really changed too, because when I was at West Point, it was really interesting to contrast going to West Point, not at war, and going back and teaching it. We were in the middle of a war. Seeing the sense of urgency and focus on the military side of training. Because when I was there, I'll be honest with you, it was like, okay, you know, all right, we're doing this military stuff, and I'm going to go be a de facto mayor of some, you know, village, and you know, we kind of non-combat operations in a hostile environment, but I'm not going to get shot at and blown up, probably, you know.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
but so it was really interesting in a lot of different ways that way too. But for me, it was all about readiness. How do you get prepared?
Yeah.
And the way that you do that, you know, it was because you're constantly in this cycle of I'm either at war and combat or I'm getting ready to do that.
Yeah.
You know, so I was gone a lot, and that impacted my family. And so it was not an easy time to do that. And I just credit to my wife and all the military spouses and families that are out there. They don't get a lot of credit. My wife is amazing, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without her, you know, but she was with me really from the beginning, you know.
Yeah.
And so the fact that she said yes to an Army officer, even to go deal with that for a little bit of time, let alone 2 decades, says a lot about her. It says a lot about our military families who are out there.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, you're either in junior high school or maybe a sophomore in high school. You know, the thing that probably, and probably what was studied at West Point a bit was Desert Storm, right?
Right.
And it's like, I can remember being in high school, I think it was a sophomore, and you know, Desert Storm happens, and they roll the TV, the big tube TV in, and we watched the war on the news in school, and then it was like 3 days later, we're like, well, that was easy. Right.
Yeah, that's what we thought was going to happen. That's what we thought was going to happen. Yeah. We had there was a few Desert Storm vets that were still around.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I joined the military. Is my sister was an Army officer, and so was my brother-in-law. And unfortunately, my brother-in-law was killed in 1994, and it was a tragedy, but it ended up kind of being a triumph, because one of the reasons I ended up getting recruited is because one of his good friends played football at West Point. And got me recruited and sent my VHS tape in, and my following in Chris and my sister's footstep, who were Desert Storm vets, was a big compelling reason why I wanted to go to West Point, why I wanted to finish what Chris started, and kind of in a way why I got in this field, because like seeing my sister go through at real time, having to come back. She had a young son. He was 6 months old when, you know, my brother-in-law was killed outside of his home outside of Fort Hood, Texas, and Killeen, Texas. And just seeing her in real time going through the struggles of mourning and that real time resilience was really kind of like this masterclass on how do you deal with hard things that just, you know, in life really gives you this incredible blow. How do you deal with that, and all the struggles and the good, bad, and ugly that go with that too? It was really inspiring to me in a lot of ways. But you know, it was really cool to be able to do what Chris wanted. Chris wanted to go back and teach at West Point. That was one of the reasons I wanted to do that. And in a way, it kind of sent me on this life mission of, you know, really being an educator and being a coach. And so I have a lot to thank them for, in those Desert Storm vets like my sister and late brother-in-law.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting to me that I'm curious about, and this was part of the conversation that you and I had, because I think you were using the word mental toughness, right? As far as like working at it. And I just find, I mean, I'm curious how the embracing has been since you've switched to mental fitness. And then secondly, I could see a lot of so I think you want to help everybody. Like just from what I gather from you and the limited interactions that I've had with you, following you on social media, I think you're someone that wants to help the world. I don't think, I think helping to Major League Baseball teams would be really cool, and it would give you some notoriety, and you'd be kind of like, wow, you'd be the guy that everyone want to talk to at the party. But I think that you're the person that wants to try to help everybody that either needs it, wants it, or deserves it. How has that been kind of transitioning from elite athletes, elite military, to helping Josh with mental fitness?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I got to thank you for being a thought partner and friend during a time when I was really chewing on that, because I was really at this some of the initial feedback I got that I mentioned to you. So mental toughness is where a lot of the research that I was familiar with too. So like think about mental toughness is kind of this idea: how do I get the most out of what I have mentally and emotionally to be at my best when it matters the most? And it really involves two things. One of them is mental performance, which is like your ability to execute tasks or do your job at a high level and do that consistently. So that's like psychological offense. And the other one is playing psychological defense, which you think about resilience and grit. Resilience is bouncing back from a challenge, change, and adversity. Grit is passion and perseverance over time. And so that's, but there's this other, there's really this bridge concept I talk about that brings together this idea of mental health, prevention, and performance together, right? And so I describe mental fitness as this bridge, to where we tend to think about mental health and it gets all the headlines, and for a very good reason. I think the World Health Organization says 1 in 2 people globally have some sort of psychopathology, like meaning mental health illness, injury, sign, or symptom that may or may not be diagnosed. And that's the medical model, is identifying problems, treating problems. So that's like treating problems, solving problems, and then it's the absence of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's just not enough mental health providers that are out there. And not everybody needs to go see a therapist, right? Depending on where you're at. And then the middle of the bridge is this coping band, and that's resilience and grit. And that's where we spend most of our lives, is in that band, right? So if one is mental health, not a bad thing, right? Being mentally healthy is a great thing, right? But like a lot of us are kind of like somewhere between, the average person is somewhere between, all right, I'm between like a 3 and a 6 or 7 in that span. And then some of us are really focused on this upper range of our potential, which is thriving. You think about, that's where I'm thinking about performance, or at the really high range, I'm in the flow state or a zone, and I want to replicate as much of those things, but those things are fleeting, right? But the reality is, like, what I realized, and you and I talked about, Josh, is that we all move along this bridge many, many times throughout the course of our life. And, and sometimes like there's this duality that exists. And what I mean by that is, like, we've all been there to where we've been really high functioning. We may be in like a 6, but like something happened to where I'm like, it happened to me where I'm kind of sad and depressed. Maybe I lost a loved one. Maybe, maybe I'm not completely happy with my job, but I'm doing this to feed my family, or I'm just kind of feeling sad or down and depressed. And we've all kind of experienced that recently, which is why it's brought it to light. And so, like, for me, I wanted to be more inclusive. So I was dealing more with that performance side when I first started. Then when I learned about positive psychology, I learned about, halfway through my military, I learned about psychological defense, the coping band. And then I'm trained to be able to refer people to go to mental health providers, but I'm not a psychologist, which means I'm not a licensed clinical provider. I'm a practitioner. So that's why I'm called a mental performance coach, based on my field from the Association for Applied Performance, Association for Applied Sports Psychology. So, but there's a role to play, right? There's this. So I have the ability to refer and identify signs and symptoms and be on the front lines, but I also have the ability to be able to, I want to meet people where they are, and I want to help get them where they want to go. And that's what mental fitness is all about. And so, like, what's cool is that we've learned about the brain is that this thing called neuroplasticity. Have you guys ever heard of this? Yeah. So it's the whole idea. We used to think the brain was fixed, right? Yep. And that, once we were 25, we're all screwed because, hey, our brain's fully cooked and it's hard to learn new things, right? But we found that the brain is malleable. It's plastic. So it can change over the course of our time. And so that's brought in these other ideas called like neuroliteracy, where it's like, hey, I can read and write my brain like I read and write in language, and I can change it over the course of my time through training and education. And so for me, like the big so what was mental toughness. We found out how to stigma. You helped me validate that. So like certain populations, they don't care about being mentally tough, right? They just want to be, they just want to be healthy and be well, right? And be able to live their lives in order to be happy and healthy. And performance looks different from everybody, and what's relatively stressful or high stakes looks different from everybody as well too. So for me, this idea of mental fitness kind of made it more inclusive, made it more accessible for anybody, wherever you are in your journey, to understand where you're at in that bridge, and through training education, then be able to move to the right, and not only do that by yourself, do it with other people. So that's kind of what I've landed on, and I think it's been pretty well received so far.
Awesome. No, that's good. I'm happy to hear that. That was a self-serving question. I'm gonna be honest with you, because I haven't asked. We had this talk a couple months ago. I see him doing all this stuff, and I'm like, I think it was a good idea. I think it was something good we talked about. And then all of a
No,
sudden
I
it's
mean, I have a million questions of self-serving.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
That's so.
I mean, well, my son's a competitive golfer. He's going to play college golf next year, and golf is such a mental game, right?
Oh my God.
And
Yeah, one of the most difficult ones, actually. Yeah.
and he's so damn good at golf, but he's not a great putter, and that's the
Yeah.
and I think that a lot of that's just mental. You know, it just gets in his head.
100%.
So, yeah, of course, I
Drive for show, putt for dough.
right, yeah. How do we get him to putt for dough, man?
Yep.
Yeah, golf is so interesting because it's I mean, you're by yourself, and there's such a room, there's so many variables at stake, and there's such a high room for error. Like I always talk about baseball as this game, game built on failure, right? But like you think about it, it's a bunch of specialists who are put together on a team. One person can really, like we saw in the World Series, really change the outcome of the game. But like in golf, it's all you.
All you.
It's you versus you, and the most important 6 inches on the golf course are between your ears, and
Yeah.
holy cow, is it frustrating, right? Especially when you're first learning.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of like offerings does this look like in your your business? Is it like one-on-one coaching? Is it
Yeah.
How does it work?
Yeah, and this is something Josh helped me out too. So the top end of my funnel is my keynote speaking, right? Because what I found is, and you guys appreciate this, is that a lot of people don't understand what mental training, like they understand what mental health is. They don't know what mental fitness is. They don't know what mental training is. They don't have a file in their brain away from that too. So it's not mainstream, right? Because I told you it was kind of in the elite populations, or it's kind of like in like private practice and really cottage industry niche type stuff. So one is like creating awareness and understanding through my keynote speaking, right? And kind of talking about big ideas. And then so that's number one. And then number two is kind of leading to workshops where we get more in the how-tos. That's what I'm good at. It's taking these things that are otherwise like intangible and hard to understand, and let's bring them to life through engaging activities at the individual group level, right? To where you can actually bring them to life. And then the coaching piece is, one-on-one small groups as well there. And I work with, like I said, I mean, athletes from the high school level to the pro level. I work with business leaders and teams, who really want to use it to help with a part of their leader development program. And then I work with first responders through a company called O2X, and I also teach at Sam Houston State. Especially cops, huge demand for mental health services. And it's tough to be a police officer right now too. And their numbers are down, and they're having a hard time retaining people. So this is something that they see as an edge to help find good quality people and then develop them once they get them into the force. And the last piece is I work with like a lot of people in the medical side too, which, stress and burnout's a huge issue, especially like for advanced practice practitioners, like our nurses who are on the front lines every day. And then, the demand for medical care is only increasing, and the number of providers and their performance is decreasing, right? And so these are, so serving people who serve is something really important to me. And sports is this great laboratory to learn all kinds of cool skills. I think, it's a safe environment that transfers. I mean, swinging a bat, swinging a club, shooting a free throw doesn't transfer to life in corporate America, but, you can learn about, about confidence, right? Through your self-talk, through using your ability to visualize, through your goal setting, through how you put your attention, you developing routines. Those are just some examples of some of the mental skills I teach. And so if you can do that within a safe and controlled environment, those will bleed over to when you're in college, or if you go into a trade, and so I think that's the transferability of those skills, I think lends itself to why it's important.
Yeah. I mean, this is such a huge area.
Oh yeah.
Especially for young people who, with the pandemic, are severely lacking in mental fit. You're like a personal trainer, but for the brain.
That's right. That's exactly what I say too, man. You nailed it. Right? Personal trainer, strength coach for the brain, right? It's a great way to be able to look at it, right? And and again, that's something that people know, and so it's something that they can gravitate towards.
Yeah, I mean, this helps with anxiety. It helps with just all sorts of stuff.
Sign me up.
Yeah. We talk like every day or text, and we're two completely different people. Like I get stressed out about stuff, and he's just like, water off a duck's behind. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? What is it? What is going on in your brain? And it's like,
I've been using him for like 5 years.
I think you have. If I didn't
tell
know
you
any
that.
better,
We set this.
this whole thing was, I'm supposed to feel good about myself for coming up with these things, and you guys, he's been your guru for the last year.
Hey.
And it's like, you get off the phone with me, and I'm stressing about all this stuff, and you're like, let me call in. Hey man, let's retrain my brain. I just got off the phone with Peach, and he's causing me stress and anxiety. The things I uncover about you, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's been
absolutely amazing. Well, how do people get a hold of you? You said you started your own business. How do they get a hold of you? How do they get more? You got a YouTube channel. You're on social media. You're putting stuff all over the place. So first of all, how do people? Because you give a lot. So I always say this about most of my network. They give a lot of free nuggets of knowledge.
Yep.
Like, and it's to get him to pay. And he's got some really good stuff. He's got some great videos, and shameless plug, a couple of them. He's got a Be Awesome t-shirt on. So I always like those. Dude, I always like those a little bit more than the other ones. But
credibility.
Yeah. Sure. But no, what do people search for? How do they find you? How do they follow you and do all that fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so I can include like my Linktree account. I mean, it's got all my socials on there. My Kung Fu is the strongest on LinkedIn. I'm no John McCaskill. I'm a wannabe John when it comes to, he's got like 10 million followers, right?
Yeah.
I ride in his vapors once in a while. On there as well too. So I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the strongest. I'm on Instagram as well too. My company's called Design to Perform. Yeah. So I've got handles there as well too. You can find me on Instagram. It's Coach_Riise, RIISE. Just remember, 2 I's are better than 1. Yep. Riise's Pieces, not Rise, like the prize. And then check out my website. That's new as well too. It's a work in progress. You can schedule a free consult to be able to do that. The first one is free. Eventually going to come up like a newsletter and so forth. But you have a YouTube video. I mean, we're talking like stuff that's 5 minutes or less, to where we get into like, it's specific concept, to where we talk about what it is, why it's important, how to go put it into practice. And so still building that content as well too. And I'm also powered by some other companies that I'm affiliated with, if you don't mind me giving them a plug.
Throw them out there.
Yeah. So if you're an athlete, or you're a coach, you're an athlete, you're a parent, you're listening to this, and you're interested, hey, how do I get this for myself? Or how do I get this for my program, for my team, right? Well, there's not a lot of scalable solutions that are out there. So my business partner, I have an app called Mental Grit, to where we can really kind of reduce that. We can scale any organization, any athletic team. And that's designed for that. Let's say that if you're a first responder, and you're a cop, you're a firefighter, you're in emergency services, like a dispatcher, and you're interested in like, hey, how do I get this information? Well, I'm affiliated with O2X, which is a health and human performance company. Great resource. They're really cornering the market. They're out of Situate. They're in Massachusetts. So shout out to them. We like them already, right?
I love them.
Started by a couple of Navy SEALs that did that. So O2X is there. And if you're a business and you're looking for, you want to learn more about neuroliteracy and or maybe you're we call them an ardent self-helper, right? You're the person who likes to get all the wearables and the watch, and you're the first person to check out the latest and greatest trends. And when it comes to health and wellness and performance, check us out. It's Next Integrated Life Sciences, really revolutionary platform that I think is really going to help move the needle when it comes to, when I talk about democratizing mental fitness and neuroliteracy. They're a really cool vehicle to do that. We just launched last Tuesday. And I'll drop the links for that as well too. So those are kind of some of the, to me, it's like, hey, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, do it with a team. And so it's not just about me and my product, and it's about the teams I'm affiliated with, to include you guys. And so just appreciate this opportunity to be able to get on here, and please reach out to us, and I'll like to be very responsive and try to be a relevant resource.
See how we're on his team.
I noted that right away.
I wrote it down
for a while.
Yeah, I know. I know, but I mean, he didn't realize he was on our team, whether he wanted to be or not. We're like a bad cold. You can't get rid of us.
Yeah, no, we're attached for a while.
I'm already wearing the jersey, man. So
I know. I don't even have my jersey on. I have the boxers on.
I got mine underneath there.
I'm taking notes.
I forgot I sent them one of those. Can't buy those on your store. I don't even know if I've ever.
No,
have I ever
you
given
gave them all out. Do you have extras?
I have a couple back
Anyways,
at home. I got you one.
Yeah. So here's my deal. Two things that just stood out. Three, because we're on the same team. I'm glad you struggled with, because you asked me a while ago, how do people get in touch with you? And it's like, you get a lot of options, right? And the thing I love about Linktree is it's great, but it's not that like, it's not that easy to say, like LINKTR. You know what I mean? Like, there's gotta be an easier way.
Probably.
Yours is the best. Yours is just beyonce.com,
yeah.
right? And everything's there.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You and I need to consolidate. How do we get in touch? Because am I missing something? Linktree is kind of a weird. It's a weird URL.
It is. Yeah, it's a weird URL. It's kind of like the thing that you do is they have a one-stop shop to to connect with you, right?
Yeah.
You see it this world too, where it's like, hey, you can't get to all the things or you can go design2perform.com, right? So
And that has everything.
Like like when you have a network, right? You have like all these nodes and all these affiliations and so on and so forth. So like, how do I get to that hub to access all the nodes that you're affiliated with, right? And so
it's tricky. The second thing I wanted to say is I'm a big fan of performance coaching. And you and I did the Build Your Life Resume program.
Yep.
We spent a lot of money doing that.
A lot of money.
And the thing is
but like, we've got a priceless friendship now.
There you go.
Worth every penny. Thank you, Jesse Itzler.
Yeah.
So is this kind of the same philosophy where you sort of have to commit to not only financially but the process, right? It's not it's
no quick fixes.
You're trying to bring it to the masses, but it's not really yet affordable to the masses. You have to sort of be willing to put a little skin in the game, right? I assume it's
right.
Financially, it's something you have to commit to.
It is, and when I say reduce the barrier of entry, like we made it affordable, right? Because we want it.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
We want to make it accessible, right? I mean, and it can't just be at a price point where only executives or elite athletes who make a lot of cheddar could afford this, right? Because, but at the same time, youth sports, for example, $15 billion industry, you got parents who are willing to pay $300 for a lacrosse stick or a baseball bat, and but they don't want to pay $300 a month for for mental coaching, right? And so it's shifting that paradigm. And I think the digital delivery methodology, people don't scale, products do. And as and so, but if you have really good people behind the products, then I think you're starting to really cook with gas, right? And I think that's where the sweet spot is for us.
I love people don't scale products too. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm in the tech space and it's so ridiculous where, equity companies come in and they want to scale based on people and everything else. And it's like, nobody's ever said that. I'm going to bring you into some companies and tell them to remember that. So,
well, I'm a customer. I can't wait to connect offline because I want to get my son into this. I want to get into this.
Love that.
I want to get the plug-in for the Bates College golf team next year.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I love working with, young people. I mean, it's where you see so much growth happen. Can I leave one final story? Do we got time for this?
Yeah.
Because you're also helping me practice for my keynote, right, Josh?
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Getting ready to go to Thailand and Hong Kong. I'm doing a keynote on this. So this is one of the stories I want to tell. This really moved me. This is kind of why we do the work. You asked me what gets me up in the morning. This is kind of going back to that question, Josh. So I'm working with this young man. He's in an international school. If you're not familiar with the international schools, like our people who work for our government, they live overseas, they move around a lot like we do in the military. So we have these schools, they're almost like private schools, but they're for people who work for the US government. And, they have a lot of unique challenges, and this guy was pretty introverted, he was, he's 18 years old. He may be on the autism spectrum. He loved basketball though. And so he's in this new school overseas. He doesn't have any friends. He's having a hard time connect. But the thing that his lifeline is basketball. He loves it. And he's tried out. He's played JV. He's tried out his junior year to make the basketball team. He's failed. Now he's getting ready to go try out for his senior year, his one and final shot to make the varsity team. It sounds like a Michael Jordan story, right? So the athletic director who hired my partner and I, reached out to me, and I've been working with students for about 6 months. Some of them were like going to be, go swim or run in college or Olympic hopefuls. And this is the first kind of student athlete who's not in that category, that he was really struggling. Met the parents, met him, decided to go with it. And I was really surprised because he wasn't emoting a lot. He didn't seem like he was into it. And I was really surprised that he wanted to work with me. And we started working together, and it just, it's hard via Zoom sometimes because you don't know what's sticking or what's not. And so we meet every 6 weeks, leading up to the tryouts. We're meeting once for an hour, just kind of laying the foundation. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know if this kid's ready. And because I'm not sure if I'm reaching him. I'm not sure what he's doing between our sessions, because that's where the behavior change happens. He's so hardwired that he deals with stress. He's just like, he puts so much pressure on himself. He's not sleeping well. He's one of those kids that has, like, he throws up when he's really under stress and pressure, which ironically, Bill Russell, famous Boston Celtic, he used to throw up before every big game. It's part of the natural stress response. So leading up to the big game, big day, he makes the first round of cuts. He's feeling good. And then he just puts so much pressure on himself during the final cuts. He misses the team by one person. He misses it. They took 14 people, and he was the 15th person. I mean, he was devastated. Texting back and forth with the parents and him. I mean, he's completely, and now I'm worried about his mental health. I mean, now he's kind of moving to that other side of that bridge I was talking about. And so I'm reaching out, and hey, is John okay? So on and so forth. And, and then I get this phone call for this trip that I'm getting ready to go to overseas from the athletic director. And he's really excited about having us. And, he says, Andy, I want to, when I introduce you guys, I want to highlight some of the work you've done, some of the impact you've made. I'm like, I've only worked with a couple kids so far. He's like, yeah, well, just to show you the impact you made, I just got a call from John, and I just got an email from John saying, and I haven't heard from him in a week because they had fall break, and I just was giving him space. He heard from John, and John writes in this email, and he says to him, like, Mr. Chris, I want to let you know that I'm really disappointed I didn't make the varsity team, but I decided that I'm going to continue to play basketball. I'm going to be the best JV player I could be, and I want to be a leader on the team. And if I get my opportunity, I'm going to be able to do it. And I want to continue to work with Coach Andy because he really helped change the way that I think about stress and how I approach pressure, not only in basketball and life. And I got to tell you guys, like, that's it. That gave me that hit me right. That hit me with the hay right there with the feels, right? And if that story doesn't move you, you don't got a heartbeat, and I got the phone, I got choked up a little bit, and so to me, it's like, I've worked with multi-million-dollar athletes and CEOs of Fortune 100 companies, and I don't get the same feeling that I do, although that's fun.
Yeah.
Knowing that a young person, it's changed their life somehow in a very, very small way. And you planted that seed and you didn't know if it was going to grow or not. And it's got a little bit of sprout above the ground. I mean, it's not done yet. We still got to fertilize it, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that, I think like a farmer is what it's all about.
That's awesome.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it all worth it.
Add a level of hope and opportunity and what's possible.
Yeah.
That's about as good a way as you could close out a podcast.
Absolutely.
As I got to go pick up my little dude. But before I do, I mean, everybody's been doing plugs in this podcast, and we're talking about sponsors and stuff. I have to give a plug. It's November 3rd. Yeah, I think I can, right?
I think I'm going to ask you.
Can I make a plug here? I got to make a plug.
Yeah.
I'm going to make one plug. It's November 3rd. And my friend Chris Mills, I'm wearing his shirt. I'm not wearing a Be Awesome shirt. I'm wearing a Shoveltown flag shirt today.
Nice.
Chris is a pretty awesome human being. And I know you're going to this guy gets choked up about stuff because he's got one of Chris's flags. And it's just, they're special. They're made with reclaimed wood, a lot of it historic right here in Easton with from historic buildings going back to the 1800s. And he started this business in 2018. Right when I started to Be Awesome, and an anonymous donor gave a flag in November of 2019, I guess, and said, I want to pay it forward. I want you to give a flag to a veteran in honor of what I did. And he's grown this to giving a flag a day for the month of November in honor of Veterans Day. I'll give you an example of this flag. It's amazing. The work that he does and the craftsmanship of the flags are just wild. And this is flag number 1040. It's reclaimed beechwood from Fairhaven. And he picks veterans every single day. He's giving one of these flags to each of the Gold Star families in Cape Cod. It's actually just that they're all getting picked up today. This is actually the first flag that's being given, and it's on its way down to Texas to you, my friend. So this is an honor of you. Thank you for your service. We wanted to do something special, and Chris was able to help us out. So thanks, Chris. This flag it's the first of its kind that he's made.
Wow.
And He's just
awesome.
amazingly creative. So I'm going from here, pick up little man, and then I'm going to the post office to drop this in the mail. So
thank you guys. I'm honored. I really am. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Our pleasure. And thank you for what you're doing for the masses, not just for the select few, and sharing your message, your experience, and your knowledge. So always in your corner, my friend. This has been a great episode.
He's on the team now, yeah.
Yeah, he's on the team. Yeah, that's
well, we're on his team too.
We're on. Well, I'd rather be on his team most than on our team. So
awesome stuff. Thanks for what you're doing.
And I supported McCaskill on your bike ride, so I've got the Frogman shirt.
It's all good. It's all united to a good cause. You know, we're best frenemies. You know, it's competition is all about making each other better, right? You know, so that's what we love to give each other a hard time, but we're really brothers and from other mothers.
I got to figure out how to get one of your Rooster shirts. They'll make a donation and put it towards see if they've got any kicking around the warehouse.
Limited edition. Yeah.
Well, this was awesome. Next time's going to be in person, my friend. That'll do it for another episode here. Thank you for joining me. This was fun. Love to do this more often. So
yeah, it's great to meet you too.
This will be great. Adam, as always, thank you for making your time for me today, and all the times I come in here for multiple hours and tire you out and only pay you in pizza. So you're a solid guy. I appreciate it. That'll do it for this episode. As always, I close every episode with, we are grateful for 5-star rating reviews. We have 72 5-star ratings. We have one that someone accidentally put a 1-star. I can't get that.
Accident.
Yeah, it was an accident, because I tell people, if we don't deserve your 5-star rating and review, let me know, josh@beawesome.com. If we do, I want to get to 100. I want us to get to the top 1%. We're in the top 3%. McCaskill on Men Talking Mindfulness is in the top 2.5%. He got a little bit of a head start on me and a big following, and he's also got a great message. So we need to get those up, and we appreciate that. So share, follow, ratings and reviews. And as always, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day, everybody.
Coming to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, see the journey.